One thing that amazes me about this inquiry is, we've been discussing it for years and working on the books for a while, and yet I still keep discovering new things. I mean, if I was to reread the books, if you can imagine how many times I've read every sentence in those books.
Yeah.
And yet when I reread them, every time I read them, I find new things, almost things that my personality maybe kept from me or didn't, uh, didn't focus on, or there could be a myriad
They're
of
filtered
things.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just shocks me that, it still keeps getting deeper and there's still more things to learn. Even if I got to a point of knowing most of the words in each book.
You knew the concepts. That's the point.
But
You're very familiar with the concepts now.
But they work on me. They're still working on me in different ways, is what I think I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
what's so fascinating.
But you see, if one knows the concepts, that's an intellectual knowing, right? So that's obviously not the same as an existential knowing of it. So what can change as time passes is that you're ready to enter into an existential understanding of those concepts. So that's what can move forward and change. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's also, as the non-dual state becomes a bit more familiar to me, if that makes sense. I can remember, I have memories of it, I've had experiences of it.
You've had a few during our talks recently too.
So I think that's having a shift, it's almost becoming a virtuous circle.
Yes, so these subjects that you've discussed with me in the past are starting to kind of like come to life.
Again, it stops being an intellectual thing and starts being experiential again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real gold dust, isn't it? Because otherwise it's like you could talk about anything intellectually. It's just excitation for the mind, isn't it? But what we're talking about is something that's deeper than the mind. It encompasses the mind, but it's deeper than it. So intellectualism is very highly priced in this world, isn't it? And academia. But this is actually not about that. However, an intelligence, I would say, is probably needed for this. And the ability to look and perceive. And it helps, because it does help to understand what's happening. Now, I say that with care, because one can understand to a level. And then you come to the end of the cliff and there's the drop off, and then you're faced with the great unknowing of everything that you can't understand, which in the end is everything. So we have this kind of illusion that in our mind created world of human contact, that we have dominion and we have power, and within that world we can understand certain things, but outside of that world we understand nothing. So scientists can understand technically that hydrogen, water is made up of 2 molecules of hydrogen and oxygen, 1 of oxygen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. But outside of science, why that is so, or why oxygen is what oxygen is, why hydrogen is what it is, why when they come together you get this, nobody can explain that. You come to this drop-off point where explanation and understanding is irrelevant, it's impossible, it's beyond the reach of it. So what I'm saying is that because we are operating as these beings with minds, and understanding what we can understand is helpful, because confusion can be a symptom of the opposite of this. As a child, I had a lot of confusion because I was aware that there was a place that was free, and I felt like I'd entered a world of human beings that wasn't free. And it was really confusing, because the pressure and the pull to enter that world of unfreedom and leave behind what I knew is immense. But I maintain this sense of confusion because but it doesn't, why do I feel bad? I try and be like them, but then I feel bad. But why don't they know about this? And why there's so much confusion involved? So I feel part of what I'm doing in these videos and in the books is kind of explaining what can be understood from a human level of what this is, while knowing the parameters of that are kind of small and they run out pretty quick. And at the point at which they run out, you enter the great mystery. And entering the great mystery and living that is very much part of what this is.
One difference I've noticed as this work is, I mean, anyone who watches all these videos will see a change in me, I'm sure.
So we're talking about the process by which this deepens. There's more availability to it. Something in you, in the seeker, perhaps relaxes enough to let this understanding blossom. The defences against it start to be eroded. There's more feeling comfortable with the world that this described. Would you say that's true with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, not only that, it's answered a hell of a lot of questions about lots of things I've experienced in life, I think. You know, it's almost as if the ground is more prepared now. So when it does happen, I've got a very different context for what's happening. And also, you know, I'm aware of the trap of my personality, you know, getting excited and making what's happening mean things that it doesn't actually mean.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what I was trying to do in the books with these very staged talks, laying out the groundwork of what this is.
The books both, I would say, you know, can make these openings more possible, or make them, you know, it can put one into space, I think, by showing the personality. By enabling one to see the personality, then one can see what's not personality.
That's right.
You know, one can, you know, I think openings are far more likely to happen to someone who's read both books than someone who hasn't. And then again, as you say, you know, they prepare you. You know what's happening.
There's this idea that masters or teachers or gurus or people who know this can kind of give it to you. This is a tricky one because on one hand, nobody's given anyone anything because what this is already exists, and there can be a great ego involvement in, I've got this. First of all, there's a claiming of something and I can give it to you. So there's always this slight potential smell there of personality. However, it is certainly the case that by availing oneself to this, to descriptions and talks about what this is, it's possible that what this is in the listener can be stirred and be open to. So I'm not denying the fact that talking to me has helped perhaps bring this out in you, or reading my books or having those discussions has helped to bring this out. But there's never a moment when I think I have done this. There is acknowledgement that this is powerful to someone who is ready. So can you see the balance? It's like one road is like personality comes in and claims, and then you get all the teachers who claim to be able to save humanity and blah, blah, blah. And then you've got the other road, which is acknowledgement of what's happened. I'm driven by just sharing what this is. That's all I'm following. It's like when I used to make picture books, I'm driven by the inspiration of the idea, and all I care about is carrying that out well. And in this, I'm driven by a very pure creativity, really, that wants to connect and share this with people who are interested in it. So in the books, a question that kept coming up and you kept returning to was just a very natural question to have. So how do I get this? How? And then we went into the subject of practice, and if I do this, I will get that. And we've explored that in a video too, so people can look that up. But I've basically said a practice is not going to get you there. But, so here I am saying, and kind of confirming and agreeing with you when you've said revisiting and rereading those books and those arguments and those concepts, you're saying has helped you. So now, in answer to your question, what can I do to get this? Exposing oneself to these arguments, these discussions, these concepts, is perhaps, one of the few things you can do. Because subjectively, you are constantly being worked on by them. Mm. The personality is being shown up, the emotions are being shown up by the reactions and responses you have. All sorts of things are being challenged. Because basically what we're doing through these talks, I think, is examining what this is and what this isn't. In the books, I use as an analogy for finding this being in Timbuktu. So your question is translated in, how do I get, I want to go to Timbuktu, A, B, how do I get there? And I've been saying, you can't get, if you want to get there, there's no maps to get there. And so you're left in frustration, right? By hearing descriptions of Timbuktu and what it's like to live in Timbuktu, it is helpful. So why is that? I would say because Timbuktu is inside you, somewhere you are already there, and this is simply the nudging and the awakening of the memory of your own experience of Timbuktu.